Hey, it's Bill, and I'm here with Amy Schmitz and two students at the Moritz College of Law. And this is our fifth AI mediation column, and we're delighted to have you back. So today, Amy and I are here with two students who completed the mediation clinic here at Moritz in the fall of 2025. And as part of their work in the clinic, they completed a seminar paper on AI and mediation. And so I'm here with Ethan and John Michael to talk about some of the lessons they learned in developing their seminar papers. So let me give you a brief introduction first. John Michael Gaudin is a third-year student, and he just completed his term as the editor-in-chief of the Ohio State Journal on Dispute Resolution, one of the preeminent law journals on dispute resolution. So thanks for all that hard work that you put in, and congratulations. I know there's a new EIC now. He is from Louisville, Kentucky, and lives in Columbus with his dog, Saturn. Ethan Bowers, also a 3L, just completed the mediation clinic as well, and also was a semifinalist in the ABA's negotiation competition that just completed in January. And so congratulations, Ethan, for being one of the top four out of probably 150 teams in the country. Really exciting. Ethan is a member of the class of 2026, and he's originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he is here in Ohio State, focusing on criminal law, alternative dispute resolution, and election law. So both of them wrote compelling and engaging papers at the intersection of mediation and AI, and we wanted to feature some of their findings today. Ethan's paper was titled, and I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right, Potential Risks and Challenges Posed by the Adoption of Artificial Intelligence by Pro Se Litigants in Mediation. We're going to turn to his findings in just a minute. But we're going to start this morning with some observations and findings from John Michael's research on mediation AI, and some findings in his paper titled A is for Artificial. John Michael, do you want to say more about what you learned?
Yeah. So the title kind of came from just a reminder that the A in our AI stands for artificial intelligence. So it's not human intelligence. And my paper really just sought to kind of remind people of that and try to look into a lot of the cognitive psychology and research into how like utilizing AI, even in the most innocent ways, can sort of diminish the human skills related and necessary to being a good mediator, kind of such as critical thinking. AI can even sometimes lead into more entrenchment of your own beliefs. And part of my paper just goes into the cognitive issues with that. So there's over-reliance on AI, which is just kind of taking everything that AI uses and produces for you at face value without doing your own double checking. There's automation bias, which is the human tendency to sort of believe anything that a machine puts out. Think of like a calculator. You don't ever double check that, but we need to with AI. And all of these different phenomenon kind of will or can ultimately lead to something that's called cognitive atrophy, which is essentially the idea that if you stop using certain mental processes, you get worse at doing those mental processes whenever you need to use them. So for example, if you're offloading your critical thinking sometimes to AI, even if it's, seemingly innocent, and when you do it, maybe you're just in a time crunch, or maybe you just have a quick question and you don't feel like thinking through it yourself, the repeated use of AI to do your critical thinking for you can likely actually lead to diminished ability to do your own critical thinking. And that's important in the mediation context because we're not sitting in a room with mediation parties with an AI agent with us. It's just us human to human typically. And even just a little bit of a diminishment in that critical thinking ability could potentially have an impact on how smoothly the mediation goes.
It seems so important that we need to develop skills and not rely on AI to be effective mediators. And particularly for me, as someone who trains a lot of mediators, I think, how is AI going to influence that training? Are folks going to be coming into that training with the same skill set and same critical thinking ability after they've been using AI for 5 years or a decade? Or are they going to be behind because they've been reliant on the AI to do the work for them? So I can imagine in the mediation clinic, students might have a tougher time getting up to speed as new mediators, and particularly for in-person mediations. You can imagine other scenarios, though, where mediators are struggling to ask critical questions because they've been relying on AI too much as well. So, do you think this will have an impact on future generations of mediators? Do you think it will be harder to train mediators in the future?
I mean, I certainly hope not. I think that we're at a point where we need to start thinking about this now, because it seems very easy to just let the first dominoes fall and continue to letting the rest of the dominoes fall. And I don't know, the research is still kind of showing like very scary conclusions. But again, it's all very, the research on this is sort of in its infancy as well. And so hopefully we're able to adapt or maybe just convince people to say the same and avoid AI use altogether.
All right.
I doubt that.
Yeah, I doubt that'll happen too. But I appreciate that hopefulness, I suppose, a sense of optimism about the use of AI. I do wonder, we are called as mediators to have competence in what we're doing, right? And in the model standards of conduct for mediators, that competence is critical.
There's the ethical obligation that mediators maintain their competency, and part of that includes AI literacy and just understanding that any use of AI can potentially lead to like a backsliding in your own abilities. And it's very subtle. Like, humans by themselves are extremely unlikely to recognize this in their own selves. And that's what makes it super tough. And that's why it's really important to kind of get the word out and sort of recognize that we probably won't be able to stop people from using AI, but we can at least educate them and teach them the ethical value of using AI intentionally and not over relying on it, not overusing it, and not outsourcing their own abilities to it.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a slippery slope. Once you start outsourcing your abilities, you might start backsliding one step at a time, and it may accelerate. And before you know it, your skill set is potentially taken over by AI and not as effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think people probably see this every day with whatever uses they use AI for.
Yeah, you live about 2 miles from the law school. Do you know how to drive here, or do you use GPS? I mean, this is a serious
Exactly.
question. I hate the GPS, but like we're reliant on it now.
Yeah.
And is that for better or for worse? That's like kind of what's core of the question you're posing. And it sounds like with that backsliding, no. So turn your GPS off is what I'm telling you. Ethan, in your research, you focused on pro se litigants and the use of AI in the context of mediation. And you identified a series of concerns about how AI might be used by pro se litigants or create problems for pro se litigants in mediation. Do you want to go over a few of the key points that you discovered?
Absolutely. So I'd like to begin by talking about why I focused on pro se litigants in the first place. That was in large part inspired by the work that we were doing through the mediation clinic. The mediation clinic primarily focuses on small claims cases at the Franklin County Courthouse. And in the overwhelming majority of cases, I saw that either one or both parties were unrepresented. That was the inspiration, as I wanted to see how this newly developing technology was going to be affecting those people who are going to the courthouse unrepresented for mediations. So when I started researching artificial intelligence, particularly with a focus on large language models and generative artificial intelligence chatbots, things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, all the kind of big names that have been dominating the AI sphere recently. The big three issues that I found in how generative AI works were the issues of hallucinations, the issues of sycophancy, and the issues of bias. So for a brief primer on what all those mean, hallucinations are when AI conveys information that looks like it could be real, but fundamentally isn't. It's either pulling from non-existent sources, it's giving wrong information, but it's of a convincing enough quality that people might interpret it to be real. Sycophancy refers to AI's ability or tendency to agree with its users. So even when somebody is saying something that is either wrong or they're looking for an unsupported viewpoint, AI might reinforce those views, regardless of issues like the user's mental health or the basis in reality. In that way, it's tightly linked with the issue of hallucinations. And then finally, the issue of bias. A lot of AI in its current state is kind of a black box. We don't know what goes into it. We know a lot of things go into it, but we can't really, from an outside perspective, assess the quality of the data that goes in. And as a result, there are serious issues when it comes to generative AI and its current iterations, when it comes to things like socioeconomic bias, racial bias, gender bias. And I wanted to specifically explore the idea of how those biases and the issues of sycophancy and hallucinations would impact pro se litigants who are using AI to prepare for mediation and their court cases.
Yeah, you write a little bit about positional entrenchment and or positional abandonment. Can you say more about what that means and how AI might compound those problems for self-represented litigants?
Absolutely. One of the fundamentals that we talked about in the mediation clinic when we were first being trained as mediators was to look for signs of positional entrenchment. We try to focus more on a party's interests in mediation because we don't want them to be locked into, I need X amount of dollars in order to settle this claim, or I need Y condition to be satisfied in order to settle this claim. We want them to think about what they want in the long term, their interests, what their broader goals are. With the issue with AI, particularly when it comes to positional entrenchment, is related to those ideas of hallucinations and sycophancy. If a person is approaching an artificial intelligence platform like ChatGPT or Grok, any kind of AI chatbot, it's going to be liable to agree with them, to say that their positions are correct, that their asks for certain conditions out of a mediation or out of a court case are going to be correct. It will try to feed them information, which may or may not be true due to those hallucinatory issues. And ultimately, it might result in people becoming entrenched in those positions. Now, in the context of mediations, the issue with positional entrenchment is that it means it's going to be harder for parties to come together. If somebody's entrenched in the idea of, I need X amount of dollars because this AI platform told me that I should get it based off of these sources, which may or may not be real, they're going to be less likely to come to the table, or if they do come to the table, less likely to negotiate in good faith. Now, on the issue of positional abandonment, I found that was mostly related to the idea, not necessarily of hallucinations, but of bias. And unfortunately, there isn't a lot of data when it comes to how these things impact mediation. So a lot of this, I will admit, is extrapolation. But with bias in artificial intelligence, if a person comes to a mediation and they've received biased information that tells them that maybe they have a weaker case, that their asks are too strong, or that they are likely to lose on the merits, regardless of whether or not that's true, because the AI is looking at factors that shouldn't be related to the mediation of the case at all. If somebody is, say, speaking in a particular dialect that AI has an algorithmic bias against, it might weaken their faith or weaken their kind of positions, and they might be more willing to cede ground when they maybe necessarily shouldn't. And that's one of the big issues I wanted to focus on.
So, and just to focus on the last point for a second, you're suggesting that if someone has a particular accent bias, for example, and the AI picks up on that, the AI may have judgments about what's going into the algorithm that are not substantive, but they are tied to the language choice, the tone, the grammar, the accent of what's going into the AI, and that may give bad results coming out.
Exactly right. It's been shown that there's research out there that suggests that different types of dialects, different English vernaculars, different languages can influence the outputs of artificial intelligence. And it's been shown to have racially, ethnically, gender, and socioeconomic discriminatory effects.
Wow, incredible. Thanks for breaking that down for us. You also talk about how AI might affect a mediator's duty of impartiality or neutrality. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So most of my paper focuses on the use of AI by pro se litigants and the potential dangers that brings to the mediation. One of the things that I also talk about, more in brief, is potential dangers of mediator use of AI. Particularly when it comes to mediator use of AI and the issue of impartiality, those same issues still apply. We don't know the information that's being fed into the AI, and if a mediator isn't checking, we don't know if the information they're receiving is true, if it's just agreeing with the mediator's preconceptions, or if it's going to be biased against any of the parties to the mediation. And as a result, mediators who have a duty to remain impartial in the dispute might have that impartiality compromised if they're using AI either during the mediation or in preparation or after the mediation.
So what do you all, as to-be attorneys, this time next year, you're going to be barred in whatever state you're practicing in. What are your biggest concerns about AI in the context of dispute resolution or in the context of being an attorney?
I say this sort of as a joke, but I prefer not to lose my job. I think that's a widely held feeling.
I agree.
With AI.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's in a lot of ways like scary, especially as AI gets better and better. Just how like it can at least look good, and sometimes that's all you need, especially in like a high-paced environment.
And it often looks good at first blush, and then until you dig in. Ethan, what about you?
So I think I've got a few different concerns when it comes to the adoption of AI by the legal sphere. So I'll start with the kind of ADR specific concerns and then transition to some of my more general concerns. When it comes to alternative dispute resolution, I'm less worried about it taking people's jobs and more worried about, like John Mike was talking about with the kind of focus of his paper, cognitive offloading in the ADR space, and then in the context of my paper, positional entrenchment. I think you're going to see, as people are adopting AI, people like mediators, arbitrators, judges might be more inclined to offload what they're focusing on when it comes to the kind of jurisprudence of a case or management of a case that's before them, because they're going to be looking at AI and using it almost like a crutch. Simultaneously, you have the issue, as discussed in my paper, of people coming to the table with their positions kind of firmly entrenched because of the use of AI, either in preparation for the mediation proceedings, arbitration proceedings, court case proceedings, or they'll be abandoning their positions too readily because of the issues of algorithmic bias. So I think that that's my big concern when it comes to the ADR space. My broader concern when it comes to the legal space is primarily focused on issues of how memorandum and how submissions to the court are drafted. If you're looking back over the past, I'd say about 5 years, you can see numerous high-profile cases where attorneys have submitted AI-generated work product to the courts, and the work product has been wrong. It has contained either hallucinated cases or cases that don't say what they're purported to say in the briefings that are filed. And as a result, you've seen sanctions issued. I think one of the big problems that you're going to see with the courts going forward, and this applies to, I'd say, all corners of litigation. It applies to civil litigation. I'm certain it will apply to criminal law. It will affect virtually everything, is that you're going to need far more robust AI proofing. Now, whether that's handled in-house by firms that will have to start dedicating people to second guessing and second checking everything that AI spits out, or having people that are going to be kind of going at it the way of John Henry, working at it with their hands and refusing to use the new machine. I think fundamentally you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of pushback in that legal sphere. And among the people who don't push back against the use of AI, there's going to be a lot more work associated with trying to mitigate the risks that AI poses.
You all are becoming lawyers in the 2020s, right? That's when you went to law school. You're going to be thinking about retirement in 2060, right? What do you think you are going to be thinking about 35, 45 years from now with respect to AI?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what I think 48 hours from now with respect to AI. I mean, I think it changes so rapidly. It's like, I mean, it's probably baffling if I could time travel and see what AI would be like, just narrowly looking into the legal field and see what AI would be like. I don't know. I just hope that I'm ahead enough of the curve that it doesn't take away my livelihood or my chance to be a good lawyer.
So it's hard to fathom move so fast. I definitely hear that. Ethan, how about you?
So I think it's kind of interesting when I think about the ways that I've historically thought about AI versus how I think about it now. When I was a kid, I was very kind of AI forward. I loved the idea of particularly the kind of generalized artificial intelligence that we haven't really seen yet, that's still kind of theorized to be possible, but if there is any movement on that stage, which I'm not really aware of at this juncture, would be in its absolute infancy. And I think that there's part of me that is still kind of excited about that idea. There's a lot more parts of me now that are also very cautious about the idea of an artificial general intelligence, but still there's a lot of cautious optimism that goes into it. But when I'm thinking about artificial intelligence in its current iteration, I mentioned the kind of comparison to John Henry, working on the railroad tracks with hammer in hand versus letting the machine do it. And in a lot of ways, when it comes to generative artificial intelligence, I sympathize with John Henry. It's not something that I'm personally interested in due to a lot of the risks that I've seen associated with it. And from how a lot of the AI companies talk about those risks, either in their kind of closed documentation that has been made publicly available, or even the more open ones, just generally to the public, it sounds like a lot of those risks are effectively impossible to fully mitigate. And if the companies that are at the forefront of AI development think that issues like that, issues like bias, like sycophancy, like hallucinations, are fundamentally baked into the models at a point where they cannot be fundamentally solved with the current iteration of technology, I'm very, very concerned about the direction that it will take in coming years. And when it comes time for 40 years down the line, like you were saying, Professor Froelich, I think that we're looking at an industry that changes on a week-to-week basis. Maybe in 40 years, we'll have the kind of artificial general intelligence that I was very optimistic about as a kid, that will have simplified every aspect of our lives. Maybe in 40 years, it will have turned out to be a flash in the pan, and the AI industry will effectively be looking at different means of exploring how we can implement artificial intelligence into our day-to-day lives that are maybe a bit more limited than the current models of generative artificial intelligence. And maybe in 40 years, I'll have been proven wrong, and those hallucination issues, those bias issues, and those sycophancy issues will have all been solved. But in an industry that evolves as rapidly as the AI industry, I really can't say what I'm looking forward to in 40 years.
Well, I thank you both for Amy and I, and this is a really exciting conversation. Of course, Amy teaching Justice Tech, which is a justice forward class. It's like a clinic, but it serves clients and creates technology. In the mediation clinic, we're always excited to have students grapple with challenging issues like AI and online dispute resolution. So we are grateful for the two of you being here today, and looking forward to see what happens next in your careers after Moritz. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Very grateful for the opportunity to be here.